UFC 267, Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. Welcome to the main card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxingmmapicks. He goes by the name of Zan, I go by the name of Harris. And as usual, we're giving you our fight-by-fight breakdown, fight-by-fight analysis, specifically from the betting perspective, here to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights you want to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action sticking around to the end of the video. Of course, if you have not checked out our prelim card prediction video already, please be sure to do that. We covered 9 fights on that prelim. There are 15 total fights on this card. So of course, we are going to get to the 6 fights that are on the main card, 6 really good fights at that. And we're going to get right into fight number 1. For fight number 1, we have Magomed Ankalaev taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Ankalaev beat Nikita Krylov back in February. He's on a 6-fight win streak. We see his record there at 15-1. A bit of a combat sambo style, but much more on the striking side of things. Southpaw on the feet, good striking, good movement, good IQ as well. Cuts the ring off well, good constant pressure, controls center of octagon, good counter right hand. You can definitely put combinations together. Have to respect his pop. 8 of his 15 wins are via KO, TKO. Good takedown defense as well. And he'll still give you, just over 1 takedown per fight. So he does have that ability to use that wrestling side of the combat sambo when needed. For Volkan Oezdemir, he lost to Yuri Prochazka back in July of last year. Definitely going to keep the fight on the feet on his end, introduced as a striker. Good power. 12 of his 17 wins are via KO, TKO, primarily boxing though. A lot of feints, tries to control center, not the fastest, not the lightest on his feet, but definitely willing to engage. He can catch you if you're being reckless. I think Ankalaev, simply put, provides a little bit more in this fight. More technique, in my opinion, in the stand-up, quicker strikes in the stand-up. Plus, again, he has that added layer of wrestling when needed. Especially if he uses it as a game plan. I especially think he will beat Volkan Oezdemir. But even if it stays standing, I like Ankalaev here as the more technical striker. So I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev. Again, minus 310 is a little too steep because Oezdemir has that power, and light heavyweight, anything can happen. But from an analysis perspective, I like Magomed Ankalaev, say 7 or 8 times out of 10 if these two guys were to face each other. So Magomed Ankalaev, he's going to be my pick.
Yeah, I'm going to make mine quick here. I like Magomed Ankalaev as well. As you said, Volkan is dangerous. He's fought a lot of guys. That fight versus Yuri Prochazka, he had him hurt. I had money on, I believe I had money on Volkan on that night. And I thought I had that fight. And then that fight showed me that Yuri Prochazka is crazy. But that fight, he got me. But the Alexander Rakic fight, he clearly lost that fight. Like, Alexander Rakic won that fight clearly 29-28, maybe 30-27. I couldn't believe that was one of the robberies of 2019. But again, in this match, just like Harris is saying, he can fall back on that wrestling. His wrestling is really good, underrated. He's getting better every fight. His striking's improving. I think it's going to be too much for Volkan, but Volkan does have that one-shot power, one-shot knockout power, but I think Magomed's going to be ready for this. I think he might just get this to the mat early and then finish him off later. So I'm going to go Magomed Ankalaev. Decision knockout, not sure, but I'm just going to take the win here. There should be, what are the odds on this fight?
Minus 310.
Holy, Vegas is all on. Okay, so that makes sense. So yeah, I'm going to go Magomed Ankalaev just to get the win.
Let's move on to fight number 2. We have Jingliang taking on Khamzat Chimaev. Of course, the return of Khamzat Chimaev. It's been a little while since his last fight. That was back versus Gerald Meerschaert over a year ago, September 2020. We know Khamzat has that it factor aura around him. Pretty capable on the feet, good technique, good movement, good power, excellent takedowns, of course, good entries, good body lock, chain wrestling, pretty smothering wrestling as well. Excellent top control, good ground and pound. Physically strong as well, especially for a welterweight. We know that there was some talks of him fighting at middleweight. for quite some time, but especially strong as a welterweight. For Jingliang Li, he beat Santiago Ponzinibbio back in January, solid win. Decent on the feet, a lot of fakes and feints, tries to find his timing, a bit more of a counterpuncher role. He can come in and engage with combos. He can, take a shot to land one. I wouldn't really call him a KO artist, but you do have to respect his power. 8 of his 18 wins are via KO, TKO. 1.28 takedowns per fight, 40% accuracy. But with his ground game, he does have some smothering wrestling attempts in his own right. He will stay on you, solid takedown defense, but he can definitely be taken down from what I've seen. And again, I'll keep the analysis short. I think Khamzat is just a little bit too much here. Lee's stand-up isn't exceptional enough to give him even the clear advantage in stand-up. Whereas I think Chimaev has a huge advantage on the ground. We see him here, of course, as the biggest favorite, or one of the biggest favorites on the card, at minus 575. Obviously very steep because it still is a fight. But I think Khamzat, I feel pretty comfortable in picking Khamzat Chimaev here. So Khamzat will be my pick. I think he gets the job done here, and I'm not mad at putting this on a parlay or two.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. Khamzat Chimaev here. Avoid the power. I think Jingliang has the better striking, but I think Khamzat just has to watch that Neil Magny fight, and he can do everything Neil Magny did plus more. And I think he could get a finish in this fight on the ground. Not sure submission, knockout, but I see this fight getting finished here, getting stopped. Khamzat's trying to make a point out here. So yeah, Khamzat's my pick. Chimaev, utilize that wrestling here, the Neil Magny approach. Neil got 4 takedowns on him. I think Khamzat doesn't need that much because he's going to finish him after one of those 2 takedowns. So Khamzat's my pick.
Fight number 3, much tougher fight to call. We have Alexander Volkov taking on Marcin Tybura. Volkov lost. His last fight was a UD loss to Saragon, of course. Uninspiring performance, to say the least. Good striker, especially in this heavyweight division. Likes to come forward, likes to put that pressure on you. Good jab. Really smooth and quick with his combinations as well. He's going to be a long striker. We see him there, just a 2-inch reach advantage, which is a little surprising, but definitely uses straight punches to his advantage. Kicks are an active part of his game, very effective calf kick as well. Definitely willing to engage once he does close the distance. Tybura, on the other hand, is riding a 5-fight win streak at this point. He beat Zan Harris back in June. Pretty good boxing, especially in close quarters, good movement for the division, good counterpuncher as well. Uses his kicks pretty effectively, good steady pace about him, where he's constantly scoring points without exerting a large amount of energy. So look for him to strategically use that to his advantage. Good striking defense, stays pretty calm. He can box in both stances. And don't forget, he has a ground game as well. He almost prefers the fight on the ground at times. Volkov's takedown defense, of course, is going to be very important in this fight. A respectable 67% on paper. Tybura lands 1.67 takedowns per fight at almost 46% takedown accuracy. Size is also important in this fight. Tybura weighed in at 251 in his last fight, whereas Volkov at this point comes in at the 265 limit. That, of course, is going to make him a lot harder to take down. If you watch that Volkov versus Curtis Blades fight, Curtis Blades was able to get him down time and time again. But what's interesting in that fight was that Volkov only weighed 247 in that fight. It was very easy to take him down. Tybura obviously is not the wrestler that Curtis Blades is. Volkov is obviously 265 now as opposed to 247. So that part is going to be very interesting, because if Volkov just has bad takedown defense, Tybura has a shot here as an underdog. But if Volkov's additional 20 pounds is going to work to his advantage, if Marcin Tybura not being the wrestler that Curtis Blades is going to work to his advantage, and if Volkov learned anything from that Curtis Blades fight, then he should be able to keep this fight on the feet, at least past the first round as an example. Analysis points to Tybura having a good shot at winning, like I said, but my pick will be for Alexander Volkov. I think he's going to, have a better performance, especially after his Saragon fight. I think, again, the additional weight is going to make him harder to take down. And like I said, I don't think Marcin Tybura is the wrestler that Curtis Blades is. Tybura is live, but I like Alexander Volkov in this fight.
Yeah, I'm going Volkov as well. That takedown percentage, 67%, is impressive. If you look at, he fought Curtis Blades and took him down 14 times in that fight and just destroyed his percentage. But I like Volkov here to get this done. He should be able to keep this at range here, the better striking. But again, yeah, Tybura is good everywhere. So he's definitely a live dog here. But Overeem couldn't even get Volkov on the ground. And I think Overeem and Tybura have similar wrestling skills. Yeah, I like Volkov here. He should be training to keep this on the feet, and his stand-up's enough here, that range. So I'm going to take Volkov to get this done.
Fight number 4 on our main card, we have Islam Makhachev taking on Dan Hooker. Makhachev, he beat Thiago Moises back in July. 8-fight winning streak for him. We see his record there at 20 wins, 1 loss. Southpaw, combat sambo, good boxer as well. Good jab, good level changes, good fakes and feints. Pretty patient in the stand-up. Really looks to effectively set up that takedown. Good left cross. He can be patient in the stand-up as well. Doesn't really put combinations together at times. He kind of throws one punch at a time, which could work against him, especially going up against Dan Hooker. To the combat sambo script, though, once he gets you down, he dominates in a lot of ways. Good top position, good ground and pound, always improving. Good takedown defense as well. Good submission defense, everything that you'd expect from Islam Makhachev at this point. For Dan Hooker, he beat Nasrat Haqparast. That was back in September, not too long ago. Pretty solid performance from him. He's a lengthy, rangy fighter, uses his jab, crisp boxing, uses that to put a constant pressure and pace on his opponents, uses that to control center of the octagon as well. Very effective calf kick. Obviously, you have to go back to that Dustin Poirier fight to remember how effective that calf kick is. Good movement. He can avoid the punch, good combinations. Of course, he is going to keep the fight on the feet, less than a takedown per fight, only 36% takedown accuracy. You're ultimately looking at a striker versus wrestler. Despite Islam's ability on the feet, this is striker versus wrestler. Hooker will have the advantage in the stand-up. Hooker has good takedown defense at 80%. Going to be really interesting to see, how much he can fight off the takedown ability of Islam Makhachev. In a lot of ways, this is a tough fight to call. When I look at the odds and I see Islam at -700 and Dan Hooker at +500, almost for the hell of it, you want to throw some coin on Dan Hooker, because I think this fight is a lot closer than Vegas is giving credit for. On one hand, I can see Hooker stuffing the takedown attempts. 80% is pretty solid, potentially winning on the feet. On the other hand, I can see Makhachev having his way, the typical combat sambo script, at least for 2 rounds. And I'm going to be a little bit more reliant on that happening. I think Makhachev will have his way. I think he'll be able to get him down enough times. I think he'll be able to smother him with his wrestling enough times. And I think he's going to pull up the win here. So Islam Makhachev is going to be my pick.
Yeah, I'm going Islam Makhachev. You should get this done here. You look at that wrestling. This guy took down Nick Lentz 4 or 5 times. Dan Hooker's not going to be able to stop the takedowns. He has that home run shot, that lucky shot. He can definitely win the fight. Islam has been knocked out in one of those situations in the past versus Adriano Martins. Well, that was back in 2015. With Khabib in the corner, he's going to be screaming, get him to the ground, and that's his world. So I like Islam here to get this done. Make it look easy. Put the division on notice here that he wants a title shot soon. So I like Islam to get this done here.
Let's move on then to our co-main event of the evening. This is for the interim bantamweight title. We have Petr Yan taking on Cory Sandhagen. Petr Yan, high technique, high IQ in the stand-up, really patient, never in a rush, never forces the issue. We know that his boxing is, exceptionally good combinations, sound striking defense, covers up pretty well, good in and out movements as well. He can switch stance. And we know his wrestling is really good. Good takedowns, good takedown defense, over 2 takedowns per fight, almost 70% takedown accuracy, per fight. So that tells you he uses it when he wants to use it, and he's successful at it more times than not. Knowledgeable scrambling if he ever is taken down, which I don't think Sandhagen will have the ability to do in this fight. But Petr Yan is a pretty complete fighter. I mean, even in that fight versus Aljamain Sterling, he was winning that fight. We don't really have to revisit that, but he was very clearly winning that fight before that illegal knee happened. Cory Sandhagen, on the other hand, we know he's going to switch stance pretty often. We know he's going to maintain distance. We know he's going to have good spacing, good movement. Nasty calf kick, uses it a lot. Very patient fighter, sets up his shots, has a diverse striking game. Really good technical boxing in addition to his dangerous kicks. High striking rate, I think fourth highest in bantamweight history at this point. But he's definitely up there on the all-time charts in terms of his striking rate. So look for him to be active with a constant pace. But ultimately, this fight just comes down to tools for me, especially at this higher level of competitors. Sandhagen has great stand-up, but so does Yan, right? I can't give Sandhagen a clear advantage there because they're just two different types of strikers. Whereas if you look at wrestling and grappling, I can clearly give Petr Yan the advantage there. Both guys can go for 5 rounds. We know that's not a problem. But again, I'm going back to the tools. Petr Yan has more of them. I actually really like the odds here at minus 240. Petr Yan is going to be my pick.
Yeah, this is a tough fight, man. Petr Yan definitely has shown that he's good anywhere, but the only time he's been knocked out was as an amateur. He got knocked out by a spinning back fist. Petr Yan, I think it was back in 2014, 2015. So that was long. That was a long time ago, back in 2014. Against some guy named Goga Shamatava. And that's how Cory Sandhagen fights. He does spinning back fists. He does jumping knees. Cory Sandhagen is super live in this fight. I think in the first 2 rounds, his movement, his reach, his length could cause Yan a lot of problems. Yan has shown, though, that he can take a shot. But as the fight goes on, the movement's not there as it was with Dillashaw when he fought Dillashaw, Sandhagen. The later rounds, I thought he won the fight, but as the fight was going on, his movement wasn't as quick as before, as early in the fight. So I think it's going to be similar to that. I can see Sandhagen winning that first round, maybe the second. But 3rd, 4th, 5th, Jan's going to pile it on. He's going to find his range. And his style is not about movement. He just marches you down, and he's a good boxer. So I like Petr Yan in this spot, but I think Sandhagen is super live. And it's a tough fight for me to really put a bet on. But for the sake of the channel, I'll take Petr Yan.
Let's move on to our main event of the evening. In that case, we have Jan Blachowicz taking on Glover Teixeira. Now, I found this fight really hard to analyze, really hard to pick a winner on this one. We know Glover Teixeira, he beat Thiago Santos back in November of last year. We know he's on this winning streak. We know he has this sort of resurgence at this stage in his career where he's reached the point where he is fighting now for the title. Solid striking, but he is hittable, right? He seems to get wobbled pretty often, but he makes up for it with his ability on the ground. He's good at finding those takedowns when he's hurt. He's good at surviving. He's really good at when he is in top position, really good at positional improvements, really good at staying on top, good ground and pound, of course. And of course, he can find that submission. You go back to that Thiago Santos fight. I don't remember how many minutes of control time that he had, but it was definitely a lot. I think it was especially that second round. He got him down early and just stayed on top the entire round, if I'm recalling that fight correctly. Glover Teixeira is a dangerous challenger here. Taking on the champion, Jan Blachowicz, who, of course, we know beat Israel Adesanya back in March. Good patient striker, good counter puncher, has that one-punch power as well. Good combinations, good at coming in with combinations, I should say. Good striking IQ to that effect. Decent takedown defense as well, which is going to be very important in this fight. Decent takedown defense, I think. The question in this fight is ultimately going to be if Glover Teixeira can be effective with getting this fight to the ground. He's been showing it with all of his opponents. Can he do it with the champion? that's going to be a question. The question is also whether Blachowicz's power will be too much for Glover. Again, we've seen guys rock him. We've seen, going back to that Thiago Santos fight, the reason why it got to the ground was because Santos hurt Glover Teixeira, I think on 2 separate occasions, if I remember correctly, the first round and the third round. And in both moments, Teixeira was able to lock it up, get it to the ground, and eventually find his way on top. You know, really tough. I think the odds should be a lot closer on this one. And I even hesitated making my pick here, but I have to go with the Polish power. I have to go with Jan Blachowicz. I have to go with the champion. I think we've seen enough guys hit Teixeira to a point where Teixeira is in danger and then brings the fight to the ground. I think Blachowicz is a little bit more patient on the feet. I don't think he would get as excited if he hurt Teixeira, and I don't think he'll find himself in those situations where he hurts Teixeira and then he finds himself on bottom. So I think he'll have a little bit more IQ than that, especially defending his belt. I think, again, he could potentially hurt Teixeira. We've seen Teixeira get hit. He's not unhittable. And I think that Polish power might be a little bit too much. He could potentially finish Glover here. But Glover's very live. This is a very difficult fight to call. I'm slightly leaning in favor of the champion, Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah, I'm with you here, man. I think that what it comes down to is Glover Teixeira, he's on a win streak. He's on a 5-fight win streak. But those against all guys that he's a much better grappler than. Some of those guys had striking advantages over Glover, but once he got it to the mat, these guys look like white belts on the mat. We know Jan Blachowicz has good wrestling, so he can actually dictate where the fight goes, and I'm sure that's what he's working on, is ensuring that he dictates the fight keeping the fight where he wants it. He's gonna out on the feet. Glover cannot take his shots, cannot take the power, and I think he's gonna get finished here. I don't think Jan wants to go 5 rounds here. I think Jan's going to knock him out in the first or second round.
Let's then take it to Vegas on that note. And let's consider either the main card only or the entire card, depending on how you want to look at it. Let's start from an underdog perspective. Do you have any to offer here?
Yeah, as far as underdog on the main card, nah, I don't really have much there. I think it's going to be a clean sweep.
Fair enough. On my end, from an underdog perspective, again, just taking a look at which one has the best shot at winning, even though I did not pick him in this video. I think Marcin Tybura has maybe the most intriguing likelihood of winning as an underdog here. If he somehow uses that wrestling to his advantage, I can see him, taking a round or two. That would be very interesting to see how that one turns out. Maybe could even be a split decision type of fight, potentially. But again, I did pick Volkov for clear measure there. But again, the underdog that has the best shot at winning, I think is going to be Marcin Tybura. Moving on to favorite picks, and I will go first here again. In terms of favorites, I'm definitely looking at Petr Yan. I know Sandhagen is live, but I really like Petr Yan in this spot here. I know Dan Hooker is live, but Islam Makhachev, you almost can't not go with him. And I feel the same way about another big favorite in Khamzat Chimaev. This is not an attractive parlay at all from a payout perspective. This actually won't even double your money. $100 will return $189. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return $472. Not the juiciest payout, but here at Boxing MMA Picks, we go for the win, not necessarily the payout. So that is going to be my 3 picks. Who would be your favorites?
I like Volkan. No, I like Magomed, Ankalaev, Khamzat, Chimaev, Islam Makhachev, Petr Yan, and Jan Blachowicz.
There you go. So looking for a little bit more juice, you definitely have it with this 5-fight parlay plus 227 on the odds. $100 will return $327. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return $819. So let's sign off on that note. UFC 267. This is definitely a pretty large and impressive pay-per-view event here taking place in Abu Dhabi. make sure you get your bets in early, as I believe this event is an afternoon event considering the time zone. It actually starts at 10:30 in the morning, looking at Eastern time. So make sure you get your bets in early on this one. Make sure you subscribe to the @BoxingMMAPicks YouTube channel. Make sure you press the thumbs up on this video. And most importantly, make sure you participate in the comments. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how you feel about our picks. We want to hear who are your picks. And let's just have some good conversation in the comments. But let's officially sign off. Like I said, UFC 267, Jan Blachowicz taking on Glover Teixeira. This has been the main card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris. And as usual, let's get this money.
Let's do it.